Hi, it's Paul Banis, the GreatDad.com, and thank you very much for joining either the podcast or the YouTube version of the podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you took just a second to subscribe either on your podcast app or in YouTube. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going to send you any emails. It's just going to show up more often on your feed, and it does me a lot of good in terms of getting more exposure for this work I do to support dads. I'd also like to invite you to come to my page, GreatDad.com/go, if you'd like to discuss more about any of the issues that we are covering within the podcast, especially if there's any way I can help you to be a sounding board in your own struggles to be a dad and to be there for your family. So take a look at that. It also includes a link to my course on gratitude, where at GreatDad.com/gratitude with a offer to take that course for free. So see you in a second. Hey, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com here again with my weekly series talking about modern fatherhood. And we're going to be talking today about a subject that's very, very near and dear to my heart, and that's education. And I've got an expert today that's going to maybe talk about some of the things that are really weighing on all of our minds. So welcome, Matt Bowman.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here with you.
So I was really interested in reading your book, Open Education, that you wrote with your co-author Isaac Morehouse about really rethinking rethinking education, what you call the 200-year-old trap. And you were heavily influenced by Clayton Christensen, who's a big massive tech guru from the Valley that we've heard about for I don't know, the last 25, 30 years probably.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you got interested in education, how his thinking really made you rethink at what the current model is, and how you got onto the path of looking at a different model for education?
I'd love to. So first and foremost, I'm a dad of 5 kids.
Yay.
So love your show, love the things that you're advocating. I really believe that dads have a critical role in today's society, is to step up, step in, and help every child be successful. So I love my role as dad. And my wife and I, as we were raising 5 children together in the same household with the same expectations, the same job charts and chore charts or whatever, and family gatherings, and we realized all 5 children were different from each other.
Who knew?
Who knew? We thought, hey, if we, standardize the household, the kids would be standardized. Well, guess what? That's not true. And so we started to look over the fence at their schooling plans, and we're like, well, each child also needs something different. So that was kind of the genesis of our open education movement. And as you said, it's much more of a mindset than it is anything. It's not labels of, oh, public school, charter school, private school, homeschool, micro school, magnet school, unschool, whatever. Like drop the labels, tap into whatever resources help your child be successful. Mm-hmm. And that's our main message, is we're not advocating one path over the other. We're advocating parents, especially with the AI fear that we all have, step up and step into this role of designing personalized education pathways for your kids. And it's a lot easier than you might think. So that's kind of the high level message on that. But I got, you mentioned Clayton Christensen. I had a chance to meet him and Michael Horn. And this was early in our program days. Michael Horn wrote something, again, underneath Clayton's, the Christian Institute, which was something like, so little innovation is happening in K-12 because there's too few non-consumers. If you use that language of disruptive innovation, right? You need a growing set of non-consumers to force innovation. And he said, that's one of the things that there's so few K-12 kids that are non-consumers. And I reached out to him proactively and said, you should look at our program, look at what we're building, look at the families who are non-consumers, that yes, they're consuming education, so they're not non-consumers of learning, but they're non-consumers of the very traditional public ed system. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're innovating. And so we built the model very much around that innovator's dilemma, is what can you see, what job are your customers hiring you to do, and figure out how to serve well parents who had opted out of a system bring them back in with resources and curriculum and teachers, and really meet them where they're at and say, how can we help you, reach your educational goals? And so it was super interesting and then one more thing around Clayton and Michael, they predicted, probably 20 years ago that in 20 years, higher ed would be under a tight crunch. Yeah. And, we've been seeing that for the past 5 or 10 years of, colleges, liberal arts colleges, whatever, going out of business or closing their doors. But little did we know it was AI that they were predicting, right? That there would be some invention that would say the signal of a degree from a college is no longer what it used to be.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's drastically impactful to that industry. In fact, just last week, I heard an interview and the lady said, very on the negative side, higher ed's diploma is now signaling that you can cheat and not get caught.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's a really, negative view of it. But in some ways, AI is disrupting it more than anyone could have predicted.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get on to AI, I first of all wanted to also take the kind of the political part of this off the table. Yeah. You're not advocating for one thing like religious schools or some targeted Correct. Approach or some indoctrination. It's a more of a macro level. And I'm sure any disruption makes some group of people. I mean, the unions are very stuck in their way. I'm a big supporter of unions, but I know they play a role in not allowing things to advance. And then there are people who are anti-education and anti all kinds of stuff. But that's not part of what you're talking about.
Not at all. And in fact, I think this is the only education innovation book that's ever been published that doesn't bash teachers union, doesn't bash public ed. By design, I am not bashing any of those things. 2 of my sons are high school teachers today. Yeah. And the union has a role in helping the role of a teacher. That's great. Don't turn over the role of people helping your teachers. Assume that they're going to be, caring about your children. That's the parent role. Like step up as the parent to say, what is best for my child? And we have families across all political spectrum, far left, far right, everywhere in between, income levels, low to high. Like our model and mindset of open education is for all types of people.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So before we started, you talked a lot about this approach really drawing on all the resources a parent could have. And this isn't specifically homeschooling. It isn't design your own curriculum. It's using whatever is out there. So potentially you could have your kids at traditional public schools, but then you're using these other tools and resources to find ways to fill in with them to make their education the most fulfilling and satisfying, interesting to the child as possible. Is that kind of
that's it?
Yeah,
that's it.
Who wouldn't want that?
What's that?
Who wouldn't want that?
Right. It's so funny that it's amazing how many parents I speak with when I say what you just said. They say, "I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know I was permitted to think that way." And that's all that we're trying to unlock is you are permitted to think that way. You are empowered to say what's best for my child may not be 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon in a classroom. Maybe what's best is half day. Maybe that's best is the afternoons. Maybe that's best is a night school. Like there are options on your table.
Yeah.
Look at them. All we're saying is look at them. And if you think that you aren't enabled or empowered to do that, or it's too stressful, we're here to just say you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how would that look for somebody whose kids, I guess in our case, for our kids, we try to do what a lot of people do is we tried to backfill to their interests based on after school programs, which results for a lot of the people who are a little bit more affluent in overscheduled kids, which is a major problem in our time. And so the kids are run ragged through music classes and math camps and everything else after school. And then they I guess you're always hoping that they're somewhere in there, they're going to find their passion rather than maybe trying to figure out what that passion is before you spent all that money on tuition and all that running around town. So how does that work for somebody who's maybe in a classic public school environment and trying to manage this?
Yeah, so lots of layers there, Paul, that we could drill down into. First, uh, yes, there is often our kids are overstructured, and what they are lacking the most is unstructured free time. So many of the chapters in the book advocate for de-stress your child first. You've got to go through a little of the detox to let them be unstructured before you can start discovering what they like or don't like, which are both important. But you can't do that when they're overly programmed. So you have to make some choices there. So then what we say is all those things around the after school programs you described, music, arts, dance, sports, whatever. What if that happened during the day instead of after school? Can we be more efficient in addressing core curriculum needs in the morning and be done by 11 and spend the rest of the afternoon in exploring music, art, dance, sports, whatever? That's what an open education ideally looks like, is that you have freedom and flexibility built into your day so that by 3 o'clock, your kid's not already drained of all energy. And then you force other enrichments on top of that. And they're then come back to dinner and then homework. Like, for example, one of our daughters said, I can't handle that rat race. And so she did our open ed program, worked on her college degree in the mornings, went to lunch with her friends, went to a ceramics class, and was a 3-sport athlete, home every night by 6 with no homework because she did her schooling in the mornings.
Right.
And her level of anxiety, stress, pressure, overwhelmedness just went away. And her friends were totally stressed out by their schedules of, all day schooling, sports, and then all night homeworking. And it was just a rat race that they didn't need to be in, when we could say, hey, there's other ways to do it. Again, if your child is thriving and loving that, keep doing it. But if they're unhappy, if you're unhappy, if you feel like you're just never have time to breathe, take a moment and say, what could we pull that we're doing in the after school programs into the daytime? How about that for, just start there.
But you're not saying that that's what the solution would be, that specific approach. You're just saying that worked for your daughter.
Yeah, that's one idea.
How would that work in a public school system or most private school systems are all still built on this cookie cutter approach of hour after hour classes with specific titles and requirements. And obviously every state has curriculum requirements. And now I think even with No Child Behind, there are certain things that they have to teach in the schools, right? How would you possibly be able to alter that schedule and have your child only go from 8 to 11 or 12 unless they were homeschooled?
Yeah, so that's the innovation we're pushing public ed to start thinking more about. We partner with public school districts and do that program for kids who want it.
Okay.
So that because we have found the public schools who want to serve kids, want to help families, realize they don't know how to do that personalized approach, that open education approach. They just don't. They're not wired for it. We are. So we say contract with us and we'll serve students on your behalf in that model. We'll meet state compliance. We'll do all the state testing, whatever is required of the state. We'll meet those things while at the same time personalizing child's education and giving some freedom and flexibility during their day. And it works. We've been doing it for 17 years now. It's phenomenal. It can work across the country, blue states, red states, it can work. So it's pretty exciting to see it in practice.
Yeah, I'm interested in your experience with educators. I was lucky enough to go back to my high school reunion 2 weekends ago and met with principals of both my former high school, which had now turned into an elementary school, and then this new school. And I was little town Wilmer, Minnesota, 100 miles west of Minneapolis. They had not only done a really good job at embracing diversity and managing many tough years with a lot of different immigration situations, but the educators were both these two principals were just amazingly open and searching for new solutions for their kids. They were just obviously not old school, stuck in the past, but they were actively trying to find new ways to address all the concerns of a changing and vibrant community with challenges of its own new diversity, but also of the modern world. Have you seen that? Does it seem like there's a younger generation of teachers and principals coming up now who are more just curious about approaches like this?
Absolutely. No question.
That's great to hear.
That's who we like to partner with. Our superintendents and administrators who, there's a couple pressures happening right now on public ed across the country. Birth rates are lower and people are opting out of public ed full day. So their attendance and enrollments are way down, which is costing them tens of millions of dollars per districts, right? So it's those superintendents and those administrators, those leaders that are coming to us and saying, can you help us? Can you help us bring a program that will attract families back into our school, into our system, and help and let us, serve them with high quality curriculum, teachers, technology, resources, entrepreneurship, ideas and those kinds of things. So all those things are available. And it's really just when the superintendent or administrator feels that pressure enough to maybe I should change.
Right.
They'll reach out. And that's why we're growing so well across the country is more and more districts and even private school administrators, because you mentioned that they're in the same trap. Like a lot of private schools look no different than public schools. And it's like, you can do something different. You can think differently about that. We don't have to be so cookie cutter, and we can tailor needs and we can personalize education. What we like to say is embrace, again, all the resources available in your community. Dance ballet classes or karate lessons or piano lessons or, museums, zoos, whatever, right? Tap into the fabric of your neighborhood and community. There's so many rich resources. And that's what I want schools to view themselves as, a learning hub in the community versus just a test prep, spit them out, move them on model.
Which has been the way it's been for forever.
For a long time.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about the challenge for all of us as AI takes over, which you and I both agree is going to just fundamentally change anything anyway. So if you're not starting to think about some of this, you're going to be left completely behind. How does AI play into this, or what is AI's role, or how can we most effectively look at AI to help us move into this new perspective?
So first, I'd categorize it as an available resource, right? We say tap into all the resources available. AI and as many forms are a resource that's available to parents and students and families. So in my head, it's not something you should run away from. You should embrace it as a tool, as a resource that you could have. On that side, you can talk about, curriculum development or assessment creation or idea generation to write something or, quickly put some ideas down and have it spit out something for you, from writing to music to whatever, right? So use it as a tool to enhance your human nature and creativity. That's one category that you can use it for. The other one, you can use it to, again, not just around education, but just expand your entrepreneurship opportunities. There are so many ways that you can tap into AI to be more efficient as an entrepreneur. And we really advocate for entrepreneurship, even I've helped kids as young as 6 start businesses, because there's something about learning through entrepreneurship that you can't learn in any other way. And even categorize entrepreneurship as solving problems in your neighborhood and community, not necessarily for profit, not profit. I don't even care. It's just solve problems that your community have and see what that learning looks like. And so AI is a great tool to automate texts or generate websites or write some code or whatever. Again, not just a tool in education for curriculum and assessments, but as a tool for generating productivity or efficiency in a business.
Yeah, I don't think we can undersell in our current time the value of entrepreneurship because the careers that we all thought of as the ones are no longer going to be there. Anybody who cannot be flexible, cannot change every 6 months or rethink their where they are all constantly is going to be lost. There's not going to
Yeah.
be any of these cookie cutter jobs, and certainly not ones that last 30, 40 years, an entire
Right.
career. So how,
Absolutely agree.
I mean, that is, I think in the past we probably looked, I mean, I know as a child, I was very much of an entrepreneur. I had little businesses going when I was like
Nice.
first and second grade. But I think there probably still is a bit of a prejudice of like my kid isn't built that way or isn't a self-starter in that way or doesn't come up with their own ideas in that way or isn't motivated. How do we try to without putting a value judgment on it, more like it's a necessary life skill, like a lot of other things. But how do we get kids more thinking that way that they would be attracted? I mean, even an approach like open ed for some kids would be very uncomfortable. It's not
Right.
this. It's not a 9 to 5 kind of experience.
For sure. I think that the idea is first kind of back to what we were talking about, destructure some of their life, right? So some of the things is we throw entrepreneurship on top of a full day schedule and a
Right.
full sports schedule or dance.
Yeah.
And it's like, when am I going to do that? Right. So you first have to unlock some natural time and rhythm in a kid's life to then think that way. A second is, there's something motivating about solving problems. I was reading some research that said our literal brain changes when we start to feel like we're solving real problems. Like there's something around either dopamine or whatever happens in your brain when the joy of solving a problem is actually super motivating. So then it's like start small, start really small, and just see if there's some jobs around the house that they can do. Right. And then you can say, this is part of the family economics. You're contributing your chores for us buying your food. And you kind of just have a conversation around, people's roles in a household.
Right.
Then you take a next layer step and say, hey, is there something that you'd like in your life? A new Xbox, a new game, a new bike, a new guitar, a new set of clothes, new shoes, right? Say something, hey, what is it that you want? And like, oh, I really want that new guitar. Okay, that's $300. How are you going to pay for that $300? And then use AI to workshop, hey, how can I make $300 in my neighborhood? And it'll spit out 10 ideas for you to think about, right? So, so maybe start with something that they want to buy or purchase. Or again, we meet plenty that also say, hey, is there a nonprofit in your community that is doing a fundraiser and they want to raise $1,000 to help, senior citizens have access to wheelchairs or something, right? So, okay, that's your motivation. So how are you going to raise $1,000? What can you come up with that will generate $1,000 that you can donate to the wheelchair project, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to just be about self-serving products and stuff I want to buy. Like there's all kinds of things around entrepreneurship that are more than just that. But it's like, how would you raise $1,000 to do a good in the world?
Yeah.
And they're like, blinking the eyes. It's like, that's fine. Let's start really small. And again, get some AI prompts or talk to some friends. We like to say, instead of, some people say, oh, I'm going to bake a bunch of cookies and sell the cookies. We're like, great, but you might have some cookies that you have to throw away. What if instead you sell your menu before you bake it? Walk up and down your neighborhood and say, here's my menu of cinnamon rolls, cookies, cakes, and whatever, and bread. And then they order it, they pay you for it. Then you go cook it, make it, build it, and deliver it with huge satisfaction, and you have no inventory loss.
Right.
I mean, just something like that where you're just selling a menu or menu of services, right? I'll clean out your window wells, or I'll trim your pots, or water your plants, or walk your dog, or, those types of things is how kids can just start to realize that it's not overly complicated. And then the last thing I'll say is there's also something around entrepreneurship that brings in interdisciplinary skills like nothing else. If you don't have the skill to go door to door and sell a menu, get a buddy who does, and you go bake, right? You like, so find your niche, find your role, and collaborate and partner. That's what businesses are. There's not one business that is all one person. Right. Businesses operate in a mix of talents, a mix of personalities, a mix of skills and interests. That's what entrepreneurship also teaches is I can't do it all. I need someone that designs art well. I need someone that writes well. I need someone that codes. I need someone that sells. I need someone that's really organized, someone that can do, spreadsheets and keep track of our bank. Right. And then I need someone that knows how to manage all that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the epitome of interdisciplinary teamwork that I love kids to start learning.
Yeah, I think the challenge there is where it requires a different approach to the whole day. Is that most kids, like you say, by the time they get home from school, I mean,
too exhausted.
They're exhausted. They're sometimes curious as to what you're saying, but getting down and actually doing the work, and again, they cannot take that as another thing on top of school and after school. So let's merge those. Have that be their school. Have that be what they're doing all day. There's a micro school in our area that kids just work on their businesses all day. That's what their school is. Yeah.
And that's awesome. And for the kids who want that and like that, go do it. If that's not your jam, don't do it.
Right. So how does your organization actually work with schools? Are you delivering them direct programs? Are you developing frameworks for them? How does it work?
Yeah, they contract with us to provide everything for the family. We go find the family, we go service the family, we give them teachers, technology, and curriculum, and service them on behalf of the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything.
How does that? I mean, every family is allocated a certain dollar amount, but that's usually put in the general fund of the school. But in your case, they take that dollar amount and give it or a portion of it to you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they get the funding from the state and pay us a portion of that to serve the family remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's it.
Yeah. And how many schools districts are you working with right now?
We're in about 10 states and 2 to 3 schools in each state, and serving, tens of thousands of kids across those states.
Yeah.
We've exceeded over 100,000 student enrollments in our 17 years now. So it's pretty exciting how many families we've helped.
So any dad listening to this and saying that sounds really compelling, would they contact you, or would they try to start lobbying their own school district to try to incorporate this approach?
What I would say is just go to opened.co. Just start there. Tell us which state you're in. We may or may not have a program that's funded by the state in your program or where you live. But also we have a private academy also for states where we're not operating, where they can, and it's very affordable. It's like $2,900 a year for a student to experience a personalized education. We help the parents design the plan for their child for the year. And for $2,900, most affordable, flexible private school you could ever imagine.
And so in that though approach, that is a homeschooling approach, or no?
Most likely, but there's ways for you. There's drop-off opportunities for you to take kids to various community resources. If like this business incubator where kids go, high school kids go, and that's their schooling. That's not necessarily a home. That's in the community.
I saw in the book and then also online, you gave a lot of examples of like child 11th grader who's really interested in auto mechanics or something. There was a sample, it was a very summary kind of sample curriculum of what that would look like. Yeah, for sure. And the older they get, they can tap into community colleges or vocational technical schools or industries or apprenticeships or job shadowing or whatever. And the younger kids have so many resources in the community: libraries, museums, micro schools. There's so many things that it's not just if you think that you have to do it all at home. That's not the model. There might be a little bit of home, but it's embrace the community that's out there, and it's way richer than you think. Yeah. Well, that's good because most families are stuck in the two bread earner situation. It's really hard for somebody to take off and totally homeschool unless they're driven by some special need.
Right. Yep. No, and that's where they can leverage community resources. There's lots of teachers and tutors and people available to help your child during the day if you can't.
Yeah. And on the website, there's also a free open education toolkit. You want to just mention what that is? The sticky note exercise appealed to me the most, but maybe there's other things in there that you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's like a 13-page tool, definitely a free resource. Download it, see if it helps you get started. It starts with what we call the interests, needs, and resource analysis. So we have some exercises you can do to bubble up the interests that your children have. And then you take a step to say, what are the needs our family and community have? And kind of intersect those interests with needs. You can't just say, oh, it's all just whatever they want, right? You have some limits, some needs you have to balance in the family and community. And then we say, what are the resources? And start ranking those from free to fee. And there, you'd be surprised how many things you can find for free or low cost or high cost. And then you map that to what your family budget is. And you can say, okay, we have this budget. We need to tap into these free resources. Or if we have more budget, we can tap into more expensive ones. And that's kind of just that interest, needs, and resource analysis that toolkit helps you kind of walk through as a family.
Yeah.
Super fun exercise to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd like to do that if my kids were a little bit younger. Maybe I'd still do them. They're 21, 25. But
I tell you, Paul, I say it's for parents of kids 5 to 30. Because you get into that adult world, and you also need to figure out kind of that balance of interest, needs, and resources.
Yeah, well, I think especially a lot of kids coming out with classical liberal arts degrees right now. It's a huge challenge for them because the world is changing, and they were brought up in a model that is completely disconnected from the new world, and trying to get them to think through what are their interests while they're holding on to this piece of paper. It is a challenge because it all seems like it's a threat and it's uncomfortable, and I don't relish their situation, but I like the idea of these tools that help the conversation go a little bit more like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? Always kind of devolves into that, like, what turns you on? And that is a really hard question at any age, rather than trying to get at what's.
And just, our 5 children now, all of them are married. All of them are, from 23 to 32 are our 5 kids. And it's fun to see them embrace their adulthood as a married couple, trying to figure out their next steps, and all those things apply. What do I really want to do? What do I like? And like I said earlier, equally important is your list of do not likes. That's an okay thing to, sometimes we give kids the wrong impression. You should like everything. Everything should be equal.
Right.
And that's not true. Like, there are some things you like and things you don't like, and it varies by child. And one of the chapters we have in there is parents. You need to put your children ahead of your reputation. It's probably one of the hardest obstacles we talk about in the book. Is you got to set aside your reputation, that you can't just say, oh, I'm bragging about my doctor or lawyer or accountant or engineer because they've chosen to do, they're now, doing something else. They're an entrepreneur, or they're, washing windows and making $5,000 a month. But you have to tell someone they never went to college. Like, who cares? If they're happy, productive citizens, celebrate it. Don't have this reputation imposed on them that 200 years have told you have to have.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you say that. At the same time, I know there's just a lot of pressure out there too, for our entire generation that said, do what you love, not what you have to. There are a lot of kids out there who are equally lost because they didn't find a thing that they could embrace, and then they don't have that path to whatever that thing is that would fulfill them, and they don't have the accounting degree or whatever that would have been a defined path. So that is really a painful thing for parents to deal with.
Yeah, and that's why, because we've kind of set them up for so long to fail, and so it's kind of like let's take some ownership of that and reset and say, what is it that you like to do, and match that with what are your needs. You can't just say, oh, this is what I love to do, and there's no need associated with it, right? You've got to have that both. You've got to be able to say, what do I like to do, and what are the needs? Well, I need to support a family. I need to pay rent. I need to buy a car. Those are needs that you have to interface with your interests. You can't just say, la, 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 I'm just going to do what I like every day.
Yeah, I'm just going to draw on this little pad of paper and all day long.
So I like that intersection. And then you say, as a parent, what are the resources that we could surround you as you interface your interests and needs? Hey, I know someone who's in that industry. Hey, I have a friend. Have you jumped on LinkedIn? We just did a podcast where we interviewed a 17-year-old who spent his senior year all on LinkedIn with the express goal of getting a good paying job when it was over. And he did it. No diploma, no college, no work experience, just networking and figuring out what people want and demonstrating I can help you.
Yeah. And maybe along the way, a lot of conversations, learning a little bit more about what turned him on too.
Absolutely. So I really think there is that wraparound resources. What do we have available? Well, we have some money for you. You can go apply it towards that industry, or maybe you can live off that while you do a job shadow or whatever, right? So tap into the resources, interface your interests with your needs. And it's a pretty good way to think about life, even as young adults.
Yeah, great. Well, Matt Bowman, thank you so much for spending some time with me. The book is Open Education. Again, you've got a #1 international bestseller. So obviously you're doing something right. And people can find you. Well, you can find the book at opened.co/book. And then opened.co has some of the resources in that free toolkit that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Paul Baines with GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching and some bunch of other free resources at GreatDad.com/go. Until next time, stay strong.